In Peru, social protests continue against Boluarte's government. On Saturday, during the fourth day of the indefinite strike, police repression left 16 injured in the southern city of Juliaca. In the United States, over 500,000 people are without power due to a severe storm in Northern California. And in China, authorities report normality and fluidity in border controls on first day of opening without zero-COVID measure. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Saturday, 16 people were injured in the Peruvian city of Juliaca during the fourth day of popular protests against the government of Dina Boluarte. In this southern part of the Puno region, protests demanding the advance of elections, Boluarte's resignation, and the closing of Congress have intensified. Due to these mobilizations, more than 60 highways have been blocked. The police have repressed demonstrators, as a result of which 16 people were wounded on Saturday, as informed by the head of Juliaca Ombudsman's office, Nibardo Enriquez, who also detailed that those affected are receiving medical care. The demonstrations broke out on December 7th after Boluarte, then vice president, took over the government from former President Pedro Castillo. International associations and organizations devoted to overseeing the free exercise of journalism call on the Peruvian government to investigate the attack on photojournalist Aldair Mejia. As reported, the international news correspondent was injured while covering a demonstration in Juliaca, in the south of the country. International associations and organizations are asking Dina Boluarte's government to identify and punish those responsible for the aggression and to stop the attack against press workers. The photojournalist said that hours before the attack he had been threatened by police officials. In Venezuela, Colombian President Gustavo Petro met with President Nicolas Maduro during a working visit in the Miraflores Palace. This is Petro's second official visit to the nation following the re-establishment of diplomatic relations between both nations. The work meeting aimed to continue strengthening the common cooperation. The extraordinary bilateral meeting came 6 days after the reopening of the border for vehicle transit, an important step forward in both heads of state's objective for regional integration. During the meeting, both presidents assessed the commitments made between both government and their implementation. Said work helps guarantee peace and stability in the common border and directly benefits the Venezuelan and Colombian people. Let's review the most outstanding moments in the process of reunion between these two countries.
During his inauguration as President of Colombia in August 2022, and from Bolivar Square, Gustavo Petro stated his commitment to re-establish relations with Venezuela, ties severely damaged under his predecessor, Iván Duque. The same month, both governments appointed ambassadors and the respective parliament endorsed both officials. September marks a new step on the road to reunion with the reopening of the Simón Bolívar International Bridge after 7 years of closure. Both governments described this moment as historical. After several months of negotiations between high-level teams, in November 2022, Presidents Gustavo Petro and Nicolás Maduro signed a joint agreement to consolidate bilateral relations. On November the 1st, Gustavo Petro made his first official visit to Caracas in what was described as a fraternal and productive meeting by both parties. On November the 7th, the first commercial flights between Caracas and Bogotá began, and then, on January the 1st, 2023, the Atanasio Girardot International Bridge, formerly known as Las Tienditas, was reopened with the presence of high officials and several cultural activities, which represented the complete normalization of the binational transit.
In the United States, more than 500,000 people remain without power due to a storm in the northern part of California. According to authorities, a total of 556,374 people are without power as of Thursday, January 5th. This due to bad weather, heavy snowfalls, rains, and floods following the arrival of a storm. The U.S. West Coast was also hit since December 27th by a snowstorm killing a 2-year-old boy in Sonoma County and causing damage to infrastructure due to downed trees. Authorities advise citizens to take necessary precautions while work continues to restore power. On Friday, Uruguayan National Fire Department declared extinguished the forest fires near the town of Algorta in the department of Rio Negro. The department issued this declaration after firefighters and authorities of the Notarial Fund had thoroughly examined the area and observed no persistent fire hazard indicating an 8-hour period. However, many fire departments in metropolitan areas such as Colón, Melilla, Pando, and Toledo, Chico, reported 4 more fires likely to spread, which they are working to extinguish. According to authorities, these fires usually occur this time of the year due to high temperatures and lack of rainfall. They have also confirmed they possess every means necessary to extinguish those fires. In Australia, the governor declared a state of emergency in the western regions of the country after heavy rains. The Prime Minister of the Oceanic nation, Anthony Albanese, stated that the torrential rains have caused unprecedented flooding in the western region. These floods will have a dramatic impact in the west. The emergency services have declared the situation as the most catastrophic ever suffered by the Kimberley region with further rivers. The Kimberley region has an extension of land larger than many European nations but has less than 40,000 inhabitants. So far, no deaths or losses have been registered in this area of the country. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In Mexico City, the number of injured in subway accidents rose to 57 people. At least one person lost his life while over 30 others were injured as a result of a train collision in the line 3 of the subway. The Secretary of Citizen Security of Mexico City informed that emergency services are deployed in nearby stations to transfer the injured passengers to close hospital centers for treatment. The subway public transport system reported that the service was suspended at several stations on this line due to the accident that occurred on the route between La Raza and Potrero. Meanwhile, the Attorney General's office of the city reported that an investigation has been opened to clarify the situation after reporting one deceased. In Colombia, the murder of a new social leader in the department of Cauca was announced this Saturday, becoming the second of the year 2023. According to the Institute for Development and Peace Studies, the victim, identified as Mariela Reyes Montenegro, was murdered on January 4th by an armed subject who attacked her when she was visiting some colleagues in the Morales Duque neighborhood of the city of Santander de Quilichao. Reyes was a union leader and leader of the Sintraesmendes subdirective Santander of Quilichao, who served as secretary for women on the union's board of directors. According to Independence data, so far this year 2 social leaders have been murdered and 1,411 have been killed since the signing of the peace accords in 2016. In the United States, fertilizer prices have fallen to their lowest level in 19 months after reaching record highs in 2022 as gas costs and farmer demand declined. Based on financial statistics, the index of this market declined by 4% this Friday, equivalent to $672,000 per short ton, the lowest number registered since June 2021, according to specialists as a consequence of Ukrainian crisis. Also, according to specialists, the fertilizer industry is currently weak because farmers are not buying it as its main commodity. Natural gas is steadily declining on the international market. Likewise, economists said lower prices could bring relief to farmers by allowing them to buy tons of produce and raise production levels for the next few months. In Europe, a local study revealed that 1 out of every 4 people face difficulties in heating their homes. According to the results of the survey named Europe Project, at least 26% of the population, representing approximately 100 million people cannot adequately heat their homes, being Greece the most affected by this problem. 1 out of 4 interviewed stated that they were unable to pay their heating bill at least once during the year 2022 due to the inflationary crisis and the increase in commodities. The survey also reported that heating bills have become much less affordable than they were in 2021, while also reiterating that nations such as Portugal and France are affected by 34%, while Finland, Hungary, Austria and Denmark registered 15%. On Saturday, the Greek government announced the building of a fence in the northwest of the country all along the land border with Turkey. According to local media, the authorities declared that the construction of the first 35 kilometers of the border fence would start immediately with an estimated budget of 100 million euros. The government also stated the decision means to end the illegal migration of Turkish citizens into Greek territory. It also represents a response to alleged provocations by Ankara towards Athens at the diplomatic and territorial level. Also, the Greek border authorities assured that in 2022 they prevented at least 256,000 migrants from illegally entering the country, and the national police detained more than 1,300 regular people transporters coming from Turkey. The United Kingdom experienced yet another day of strikes in the worst wave of demonstration the country has seen in decades. The government continued to reject the workers' demands. Although Prime Minister Rishi Sunak met Saturday with health workers who also are on strike, it is the rail workers' crisis that is having the greatest impact on the country. The coordinated strike involved thousands of public sector workers, including teachers, firefighters, and immigration service workers. British experts say it is the worst period of social protest since 1980, which, coupled with double-digit inflation, is having a major impact on the economy and the quality of life of the population. Russia, despite difficulties due to sanctions, increased agri-food industry exports to friendly countries by 25%, refocusing its vision on 2022. As of March 2022, the Russian government exports food to 150 nations, adding dozens of names to its list of friendly countries such as Australia, Canada, South Korea, United States and Japan, along with members of the European Union. Meanwhile, Agricultural Ministry indicated at the end of November that the value of agri-food exports at the end of 2022 would be close to $400 billion, adding that commercial exchange continues, but it is not possible to speak of growing sales market for Russian foodstuffs. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In China, authorities report normality and fluidity on the first day of the opening of borders and the end of the zero-COVID policy. As of this Sunday, COVID-19 was downgraded to Category B. According to the law on prevention and treatment of infectious diseases, COVID-19 is no longer a Category A disease and therefore does not require quarantine. Juliaca, Director of the General Administration of Customs, inspected the first group of passengers, attesting to the normal functioning of the operations. In less than 2 hours, more than 300 passengers passed all border controls successfully. Authorities in an Indian Himalayan town stopped construction activities and started moving hundreds of people to temporary shelters after a temple collapsed and cracks appeared in over 600 houses because of sinking of land. Residents of Joshimath town in Uttarakhand say they started noticing cracks in houses, especially after the 2021 floods in the region. No injury was reported in the temple collapse late Friday, and those living nearby had vacated the area a day earlier. Himanshu Kurana, the district administrator, said more than 60 families were moved to government relief camps. According to local media, the number is likely to go up to 600 families. The government will pay $50 per month for 6 months to those rendered homeless. A temple town of around 25,000 people that sits at an altitude of 1,890 meters. Ivorian citizens welcome the news of the presidential pardon of 49 soldiers detained in Mali, formerly sentenced to 20 years in prison and death. The soldiers were on a mission, both for the country and for other international organizations, and their return and release brings joy for everyone. This pardon is said to keep the peace between the neighboring countries and aid in calming the unrest in the region. Relations between ECOWAS and Mali had already been strained before the arrest. The junta has so far resisted West African pressure on sanctions and remained in power, pledging to step down in February 2024. Bamako also wanted Ivory Coast to hand over people who had been on this territory since 2013, but who are wanted in Mali. Ivory Coast rejected both demands and was prepared for extended negotiations to free the men. On Saturday, the Senegalese government reported an increase in fuel and electricity prices. According to the announcement, the cost of diesel and petrol will be increased by 100 CFA francs, while electricity will undergo a variation by installments and will not affect users who consume less than 150 kilowatts per hour every 2 months. It was also learned that the increase will not affect gas cylinders or paraffin fuel, and special treatment would also be given to transporters. In this way, the price increase responds to the worldwide growth of hydrocarbon costs as a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic and the current armed conflict in Ukraine. Ethiopians celebrated for the first time Orthodox Christmas since the peace deal was signed. 2 months after the ceasefire agreement, crowds of Orthodox Ethiopians gathered in the city of Lalibela to celebrate Christmas with the hope of reconciliation after a long-term war between the federal government and the rebels in Tigray region. In this way, tens of thousands of faithful took place in that territory to celebrate Gena, following months of being the center of constant fighting between the two sides, although in recent times the attendance has decreased due to the conflict in the north of Ethiopia. The deals laid the foundations to continue advancing in the peaceful solution of the conflict that has caused one of the worst contemporary humanitarian disasters through the rehabilitation of some essential services, among other measures. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.